As a kid, whilst I liked High School Musical, I often wondered what happened after the final dance scene. Did Troy choose music, or did he choose basketball? Luckily, with this mysterious state-of-the-art technology, we can see what would have happened if he had have chosen basketball. Get your head in the game, guys, because this is High School Musical 4, 20 years later, but in 2003. Our story starts after Troy leaves college. To put it simply, Troy could not compete. He really struggled in college. The size jump from High School Musical defenders to college defenders meant he just couldn't shoot mid-range jump shots anymore. Troy Bolton is 5'8". This meant that he had to switch his game up. He found a way to get the right pass rather than the right shot. This meant that his highlight reel wasn't that interesting anymore. He no longer took the game-winning shots. He tried to make the game-winning passes. He suddenly just became one of the guys.
It's a gift from the
He didn't really know if he could make it to the NBA, but he wanted to try. It's officially draft night in 2003, and sitting next to my childhood crush was a 19-year-old Troy Bolton. My crush was Gabriella, just so we're all on the same page. The first player's name is called, and unsurprisingly, LeBron James goes first to Miami. Then D-Wade goes to the Knicks, then Carmelo Anthony goes to the Bulls. As draft night goes on, his chances were starting to fade. The entire first round went and there still wasn't a home for Troy Bolton. Maybe a bad season in college had really ended his basketball career. But on the second night, Troy Bolton would hear his name.
With the 16th pick in the second round, the Chicago Bulls select Troy Bolton.
Chicago Bulls, the former home of Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, some of the all-time greats. Chicago was still in the middle of a difficult rebuild after The Last Dance. They had a few young pieces, but nothing spectacular. But once you add in players like Melo and Troy, they had a real chance of getting back to the playoffs for the first time since 1998. And whilst the Bulls may not have had the players, they did have the identity. The Bulls were entering an era known as the Big Bad Bulls, a locker room full of bullies, prioritizing height and muscles over anything else. They wanted big guys, tough guys in every position. And whilst that meant that Troy didn't have a natural fit in this team, they did want one guy who could just shoot the ball, someone who specialized in mid-range. When Troy met the rest of the team, it was very much Carmelo Anthony and some other guys. It wasn't Troy and Carmelo Anthony. Melo was already arguably the best player on this roster, so he kind of didn't get any of the rookie treatment. That all fell down to Troy. One time they caught Troy singing in the bathroom before practice, and then in practice when he dribbled the ball out of play, they called him Allen Iverson. The season opener was against Boston, and Troy was given 1 minute. He got no points, no assists, no rebounds. He played 1 minute. The second game of the season was against Kevin Garnett's Timberwolves, and he didn't get a single minute. Kevin Garnett also put up 40 points and got 20 rebounds in this game, making him an absolute dream target for the Bulls administration. After trading one of the other guards for another big, more minutes became available for Troy. Some games were good, some games were bad, but he just wasn't living up to the hype. But soon, one trade would change everything. Now, halfway through the season, they needed to secure an 8th place finish or better to make it to the finals, so they rolled the dice. They put their starting point guard into a deal to secure Chris Bosh. They didn't really need another big, but the guys upstairs couldn't handle themselves. In place of the old point guard, they signed a new, older, weaker point guard to take the starting spot. But Troy was going to get more chances off the bench. But it just didn't happen for him. A string of bad performances and this growing feeling that he didn't fit the culture the Bulls were trying to get to meant he just felt alienated from his teammates. The Bulls finished outside the playoffs, and it seemed the writing was on the wall for Troy. With the Charlotte Bobcats entering the league, clubs were asked to nominate players available for an expansion draft. Chicago put Troy's name forward, being happy to cut their losses with him after just one season. But even the Charlotte Bobcats didn't want him. When returning to Chicago, he was told the club hadn't planned on keeping him, but they'd commit to one more season because of how the roster was shaped. The reason there was still space was because the men upstairs were working on a deal to secure Dwight Howard in the 2004 draft. He'd fallen to 3rd place and they snapped him up. It cost the starting shooting guard and a couple backup big men, but Dwight Howard was a Bull. Bulls had a strong young core now and a lot of wage space available, and sitting in free agency there was Kevin Garnett, a man who epitomized what the board wanted in a player. He put up 40 points and 20 rebounds against the Bulls early on in the season, and they splashed the cash on him. He signed the biggest contract in the league at this time, nearly 20 mil a season back in 2004. He came straight in and took the Bulls from not just a playoff team, but to a favorite for the whole thing.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible!
To put it short, it was a success. Kevin Garnett came in and made the Bulls team his own. On the losing side of this was Troy. He'd grown a little bit, but he was still alienated from his teammates and just wasn't really the player he needed to be. For his CV, Becoming a role player in a championship winning team sounded great, but he still wasn't accepted by his teammates and hadn't really accepted himself. Clips of him singing from high school got shared in the team group chat, and in the 2005 offseason, the Bulls needed an upgrade on their backup power forward, and a certain team had decided they needed to tank for a couple seasons. Bulls found their new man and put together a package of Troy Bolton and a rookie big man. Once the trade was done, Bulls had their new man, and Troy Bolton was a Bobcat.
Hey, what team?
Bob.
What team?
Bob.
What team?
Bob.
The Bobcats owner knew no one really wanted to join them. They were doing terribly, but he had a long-term plan. Recruit young, tank so your picks are worth more, draft a couple young stars, become a destination for free agents, and win the NBA championship. Troy loved this approach. The chance to play with other young guys who hadn't quite figured out the NBA, get some minutes under his belt, grow with the team, was exactly what he needed. Troy fit straight into the starting five and had some really good performances. Whilst the team did suck, he didn't. He took home most improved, and his former teammate Chris Bosh took home sixth man of the year. The Bobcats were nowhere near the playoffs, and that didn't really matter. For the first time, he was able to relax. He no longer felt anxious on if he'd have a spot on an NBA roster. The Bobcats had the second overall pick in 2006, where they selected Brandon Roy. No other big signings were made. Another season of tanking was expected. The team finished just under 500, but had a load of draft picks to trade up with. They ended up trading up to get the second overall pick of the 2007 draft, where the Charlotte Bobcats picked up Kevin Durant. In the offseason, Troy secured a very solid deal, getting his first real taste of NBA money. He signed a contract until the end of 2012 on over $10 million a season. But at the same time, a 30-year-old Vince Carter was sitting in free agency with no offers. All that they needed to do was pay Vince Carter and he would be theirs. So that's exactly what the team did. Both Vince Carter and Kevin Durant killed it in their first game. And at the trade deadline, the team looked really solid. 25 wins, 21 losses. They were one real move away from locking in a playoff spot for the first time in Charlotte Bobcat history. It took giving up Bogut, 2 role players, 2 first-round picks that were projected to go first and second, but in return they got Chris Bosh. He wasn't getting any minutes anymore for the Bulls, always benched behind KG and Dwight Howard. He wasn't even the 6th man on the roster at this point, but the Cats had a starting spot ready for him. Now the starting five was Troy Bolton, Vince Carter, Brandon Roy, Kevin Durant, and Chris Bosh. The Cats finished the season well, 24-12 after the deadline. It also had them as the 6th seed versus the 3rd seed of Philly. At this time, Philly had Allen Iverson, which meant Allen Iverson would verse Allen Iverson. Brandon Roy would miss the first round, and Vince Carter would miss the entire thing. He was injured and would miss all of the postseason. It was a lot of pressure for the big three. Cats took game 1. Philly took game 2. Cats took game 3. Philly took game 4. Cats took game 5. Philly took game 6. Whatever the Bobcats threw at Philly, Philly threw right back at the Bobcats. Allen Iverson was destroying. Troy Bolton had never seen a man move like this. He couldn't get near him. This game was fast, it was high scoring. Chris Bosh put up 19 rebounds, Troy put up 16 assists, but KD had 74 points. Iverson said goodbye to his Philly fans, and his contract was up, but we were looking forward. This team knew it was going to win something. Going up against LeBron's Miami was going to be just a small bump in the road. They got swept. Oh man. This was the story of the Bobcats for the next couple years. Vince went back to Toronto, Allen Iverson went to the Bobcats, but things didn't really change. Yes, they had the bones of a super team, but they got swept by LeBron's Miami again next season in the first round.
I want this man to be no more.
In the offseason, they drafted Curry and Blake Griffin. They became the 1 seed, got taken to a game 7 by an 8-seeded Wizards team, and then were drawn up against LeBron's Miami. But this time they won. They were into the conference final against Chicago, and it went to a game 7, but they just couldn't hit their shots. Carmelo Anthony just controlled the game. Every shot he took went in. KD would shoot a 3. He would shoot a 3. KD would shoot mid-range. He would shoot mid-range. But when Carmelo got tired, KD got hungry. Carmelo was playing the ball around trying to get assists, but KD was just looking for buckets. Troy was playing like Tom Brady. He found him with every single ball. Chicago scored 144. Charlotte scored 160. Carmelo put up 48, but KD exploded for 74. Brandon Roy, Iverson, Curry all had notable games, but some of the passes from Troy Bolton were crazy. The Cats waited in the final, and Dirk's Mavs came to town. Cats took game 1. Mavs took game 2. Cats took game 3. Mavs took game 4. This looked like it was going to be like that Philly series, but after winning game 5, the Cats made it a priority to get this done in 6. And in that 6th game, the Bobcats scored 124 and the Mavs scored 103. For the first time since Chicago, Troy Bolton and the Charlotte Bobcats were NBA champions. That offseason, nothing much changed coming in, but the mood was changing. In the offseason, Curry just became a different animal, and when the season started, Troy was told he'd be playing backup to Stephen Curry. Suddenly, Troy wasn't a starter anymore. and he was competing for minutes off the bench. He did do well in limited minutes. He ended up taking home 6th man of the year, but it just didn't matter that much. Steph took home most improved and was playing much better. The Cats were the 2 seed. They took care of the Knicks easily, and when faced up with Miami, they took them out again. Up against the Bulls, they got out in 7, but Troy hardly saw the floor. 3-0 up against the Trailblazers in the final. They had a chance for a clean sweep. 2 points down with 1.2 seconds, the ball gets into Kevin Durant's hands. He won it for the Cats. Back-to-back champions. KD looked happy. Blake Griffin looked happy. The entire roster looked happy. But Troy didn't. He'd become the bench guy. The impact. He wasn't even a starter, let alone the star he always wanted to be. That offseason was a weird one for Troy. His contract was expiring the next year and he just didn't know if he really cared about basketball anymore. But was any of it fulfilling enough? One day he got a call from the head of the Bobcats though. The head office was shaking things up. Roy was traded, most of the future picks were traded in, and the Cats went heavy on the draft. The dressing room looked completely different, and Troy had a second coming. He didn't know what his future was, but for this one season, he was going to take care of all these youngsters. Troy was given back his starting place as Steph moved to the 2. They had a bench deep of youngsters. Troy's contract was still going to expire at the end of the season, but he'd worry about that at the end of the season. The 2011-2012 season went well. As the back-to-back champions, they were heavy favorites for the whole thing. They took out Detroit in 5, Miami in 5, Chicago in 7, and in the final, they swept Houston. Back-to-back champions, a three-peat. Troy Bolton has done extremely well for himself, and he's gotten back into the starting 5 this season. But what's next? Troy's agent, Chad Danforth, yes, that's his real name, Chad presented 4 offers. Option A, stay in Charlotte, and as time goes on, you take a lesser role but be a part of a dynasty and collect rings for fun. Option B, return to Chicago, the best team that isn't called the Charlotte Bobcats. Go to a franchise that cut you and change the narrative. Maybe even get your jersey retired at a team that did give up on you. Option C, start fresh. Maybe even a new team from where Troy went to college. Pick a team based around California and lead your new franchise to glory. Or option D, retire and focus on musicals full time.
My head's in the game, but my heart's in the song.
If this video gets 5 million likes, I'll make a part 2. This video only happened because someone recommended it and I liked that suggestion. So if you have a suggestion for a video, comment it. You might be able to hear it in my voice. I am sick. I might have to take a little bit of a break from recording these videos, but I appreciate you guys being here. Until next time, I'm bolting it. I'm bolting it. That's what we're signing off with.